Welcome, guys, to another series I plan on start doing. This one's going to cover a deck either in the top 8 of the ETS or, the deck that wins. And it's going to be about, maybe a different approach to an archetype or, something unique that was played that hadn't been played in previous ETSs. Today I've got y'all with LordFozz. He is the winner of the February 17th ETS. LordFozz, would you like to do a quick shout out?
Shout out to Selenia on Ladder. He helped me brew this list and test for it, and introduced me to the game. So big shout out to him, and follow me on Twitch if you guys find me in this deck interesting.
Yeah, there'll be a link to his Twitch down below the video, so be sure to check that out, guys. So first off, I noticed the name Bigger Rakano Aggro, and I noticed a lot of people were calling it mid-range. What's your thoughts on that?
So I did see a lot of people calling it mid-range, and there's definitely like a lot of card selection that is inspired by some of the mid-range lists, but mainly due to the fact that it is a Rakano list and it is restricted to the Fire and Injustice, cards. It definitely plays a lot more like an aggro deck than it would a mid-range deck. We're not playing a lot of the hard removal and heavy game-ending threats that a mid-range deck would play, like a Tavrod or an Ikaria or a Makto. These threats that usually sometimes even demand multiple removal spells to even be dealt with. And our intention is pretty clear. We're trying to hopefully curve out and kill our opponent with some big 5-drops like Soulfire Drake, Obliterate, and Deep Forge Plate.
Yeah, I feel like mid-range, you're playing Slays, a lot of decks are playing Sabo and Devastating Setback, and when they're playing Tavrod, it's, you don't have to play a fast spell to answer him. A lot of times you get that next turn before you get to do anything, whereas your 5-drops have immediate impact, and it's pretty devastating to the board state as well.
Yeah, that was definitely the intention. Like, I definitely wanted a deck that had finishing power. That was kind of my gripe with other previous Rakano lists, was that, top decking 1-drop like Oni Ronin in the late game versus top decking Obliterate. It's a big difference.
Yeah. So definitely on that one. What were you expecting going into this ETS? I think you said it was your first ETS ever.
Yeah, it was my first ETS. But paying attention to, what people had been playing on Ladder, what people had been talking about on, Reddit and on other various mediums, like it had been apparent that there was still going to be some number of FJS lists, whether it was removal pile or more of a aggressive charge-based deck. And then I expected a lot of time mid-range. Obviously, in the top 8, there was a couple Combre lists, but I wasn't putting Elysian past some players, so that was definitely an option. And then I was expecting definitely some aggro, some lists of Rakano, and definitely some lists of Skycrag. Those are like the main decks I was expecting. I definitely, in the back of my mind, expected there to be like some number of Charge Rod, but I didn't expect there to be many players playing it. But I know that it's a deck that does well in these tournaments.
I got you. And from the looks of it, like, you called the meta pretty correctly. A Skycrag deck making top 8. 3 different time decks, one being the Charge Rod you just mentioned, and then the Good Pile or FJS removal, everyone likes to call it, all made top 8. So you did really good job calling the meta. So this is the main deck. So how impactful was your sideboard? It seems very interesting with the cards of Engine, Imperial Armor, Groundbreaker, Flamestoker, Stonescar Maul, Copper Hall, Bailoff. It looks like you actually do become like a mid-range deck, and just tell me a little bit about this sideboard.
Yeah, definitely depending on the matchup. Like, I felt that there were certain effects or threats that I needed in certain matchups that I just couldn't afford to just jam into the main deck. Bailiff was definitely a card that I felt was completely necessary in the board, because you don't have the 1-drops to kind of go card for card with a lot of the other cheaper aggressive decks like Skycrag and other Rakano based lists. Bailiff really does put a damper on those lists, and especially against some of the Skycrag lists popping Aegis, it sets up better chances for you to use your removal spells against those decks. Flamestoker, which caught a lot of attention during the tournament, was kind of my answer to any of the harsh rule decks that might have slipped through the cracks. I know a lot of decks have been cutting the card, but also against some of the more like Felon-based control lists that tend to just go above and beyond and remove, and then also put really big threats on the board that's hard for the deck to deal with. And the other kind of like card that caught the most attention was the Aegians, and that was specifically to improve our mid-range matchup against these time-based mid-range decks. So we could, if we didn't have the direct answer for like a Titan, Sandstorm Titan, that we could, suit up a guy and kind of go over the top of those creatures.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't got to see Armor or Engine do really well before. Could you say that he might have won you a game or two?
There was throughout the course of the tournament, there wasn't an instance where Engine would have won me the game on its own, but it definitely was a case where it was a card that needed an answer immediately, or it would have taken over the game. So I never got a chance to activate the ability, though there was an instance where I definitely probably should have, and it would have been the right call. But it didn't have like an impact as strong as I expected. But it was definitely, I felt, necessary to improve our matchups in certain matchups.
Okay. Back at the main list, what kind of changes would you do going forward in the ETS, or does it just kind of matter on the meta, or do you think this is a very good ladder deck to take?
So this deck, it definitely play at your own risk on ladder. That's just my personal opinion, because like I would go, there would be times where I would go 50-50. There are times I go on crazy win streaks. It's definitely just, it depends on the day, depends on what people are bringing to the table on their during their ladder runs. Because there are days where Vanquish is just completely blank. There are days where Deforge play just is maybe where it's Obliterate. It all depends. So if I was bringing this on ladder, I would definitely heavily consider Copperhull Bailiff in the main deck at times, depending on what you're seeing throughout the day. Definitely consider Flamestoker potentially over some of the late game threats, mainly the Deforge plates. If you're seeing a lot more, justice-based control lists with harsh rule, or even like the aforementioned Felden control lists, it really depends.
All right, man. That's thank you so much. So I think that'll end the interview with LordFozz, guys. New player to watch out in the ETS. He first ever tournament, and I think you said you've only been playing a month now?
Yeah, been playing for a month. Like heavily, main master both those months. So definitely enjoying the game and looking to keep pushing going forward.
All right. So that'll do it for us. Thank you for checking out this series. Let me know if this is a series y'all would be interested in me keeping up. And if you like the video below, click the subscriber button, please. And thank you for watching. You guys have a great day.